we're going to move into some learning together, which I'm very excited to lead. This Parsha is Parshat Naso, and it is chock full of offerings. There's also a very upsetting description of the Sota ritual, which is this really cruel, misogynistic punishment. And there's also about the laws of the Nazarites, people who are sort of Jewish monks of sorts. But strangely, in the middle of the Parsha, there is this blessing that Bill read in the 7th Aliyah. And we're going to look a little deeper at this blessing, which is the priestly blessing, which is one of the oldest blessings, or the oldest blessing in our tradition. And I think just two big questions that I want us to think about before we dive into the text itself and some of the sources, which we're not necessarily going to be able to answer in the course of our time, is sort of like, why do we bless? Why do we bless God? And why do we bless one another? This is just something that I'm thinking about. Is it beyond belief? Does it serve a different kind of function? Is it a way to comfort? Is it sort of, there's many, you can write in the chat, but it's just, why do we bless? I'm going to share my screen. And so I put the big questions. Why do we bless God and why do we bless one another? And I wanted to just show this thing that I found from the Israel Museum, which are these fragments. They're amulets, so they're very, very small, from Ketef Chinom, which is an archaeological site, which revealed writings inscribed onto these amulets that once they were parsed out by archaeologists, don't have the exact same structure as a priestly blessing, but it has elements of it. So we have Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. This is not a final letter here. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. These are elements of the original blessing, and this corresponds to the amulet itself. So I just wanted to give that bit of archaeological history. So we have this blessing. Can everyone see this? And I was just wondering if we could have a volunteer to read this in English. Stacy, go ahead.
The Holy One spoke to Moses, "Speak to Aaron and his sons. Thus you shall bless the people of Israel. Say to them, Adonai shall bless you and protect you. Adonai shall deal kindly and graciously with you. Adonai shall bestow God's favor upon you and grant you peace." Can please people stop chatting for a minute so that I can read the rest of it? It's going on my screen. Thus they shall link my name with the people of Israel, and I will bless them. You want me to go further?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Stacy, for reading this for us. So there's two things that I'm hoping we'll talk about in our time together. One is sort of this doubling of each of the three elements of this blessing: the bless and protect, deal kindly and graciously, favor and peace, and also the democratization of prayer. So right now we've had God blessing the Israelites, but now God is sort of like using a messenger and saying, okay, Moses, enlist these people to give this blessing, but do it on my behalf. So they're invoking me, but they're blessing other people themselves. So I'm curious, what do you think is the effect that the doubling has in each piece of the blessing? Is there a reason for it? What do you make of that? Sarah?
Well, it's sort of like, I read a lot of fantasy, disclaimer here, and it's sort of like if you double a magic cord, it gets stronger. So I'm almost wondering if doubling a blessing is sort of making sure it happens, is sort of being a little bit obsessive compulsive, just that extra insurance.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thanks. Insurance. and strengthening the magic cord. Joel, and then Ruth, and then Liz.
Yeah, in Hebrew poetry in general, Hebrew and Middle Eastern poetry, they always double things. It was for emphasis, and it's like hypnotic. Poetry in general induces literally a state of hypnosis, like, and technically speaking, in hypnosis. And when you double it, and say it in another way, it has an effect on the brain.
So the text is actually entering our psyche in some kind of way.
Yes, yes.
Wow, cool. Ruth?
Well, I was going to say something similar to what Joel said. It's very good poetry to give that balance, say one thing and balance it with something else. It's also very easy to remember it. And back in those days, I don't think that many people wrote anything down. And so it's kind of like, if you're going to bless somebody, you're going to protect them too. You know, if you're going to deal kindly, you're going to be gracious. It's very easy to remember. So I think you find this very common, and where I learned it is in the Psalms class.
Right.
You find this very, very common in the Psalms.
Right. Wow. So the doubling is easier to remember, and it's like, well, while we're already asking for your this, we'll add that to the wish list.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you, Ruth.
You're welcome.
Liz Galst?
Similar to what Joel and Ruth said, I think it allows both the speaker and the listener to kind of dwell upon what's being said for a little bit while longer. Like, imagine if this poem, if the blessing weren't doubled, it would just be like, may God bless you and deal kindly with you and bestow upon you peace. Like, boom, you're done. Like here, if it expands on it. And I don't know if anybody else is like this, but I find that once the thing is done, I kind of forget about it. So it's better to spend a little bit more time with it while I'm actually present with it. So
yeah. Wow, that makes a lot of sense to me. You know what you said made me think of like the Jewish goodbye. Like, might as well give a 5-minute goodbye, because if you just say bye and then you leave, it's like, well, what am I left with then? It's a little thin, but that it kind of thickens the blessing if you double it, and it makes it stick. So there's this commentator called the Ha'amek Devar, who is Naftali Tzvi ben Yehuda Berlin, 19th century rabbi. And he has this interpretation for why there is a doubling, blessing, and protection. Could a volunteer read this in English? I tried my best to degenderify it. You could use the raise hand feature, or you can raise your hand in your box. Elizabeth. I'll ask to unmute.
Unmute.
Great.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. May God bless you. Included in this, whatever is appropriate for each person to be blessed with, the blessing will be according to the blessing that one was blessed with until then. For one who deals in Torah and study, for one who deals in commerce and merchandise, thus is included in this general blessing, may God bless you, in quotes, an additional blessing for each person about what they have. Continue.
Mm-hmm.
And protect you. For every blessing requires protection so that it does not become an obstacle, God forbid. A master of Torah needs protection from pride, desecration of God's name, and the like. And similarly, that one not forget their learning, a property of learning, period. A property owner needs protection that their wealth not to be to their detriment. Okay, don't get a big head about it. And similarly, protection from theft and loss. And likewise, for everything that is in need of blessing, protection from whatever causes trouble is requested. Okay.
Thanks.
Muting. You're welcome.
Yeah, that's great. So we have the Himaktavar sort of takes this line, bless and protect, and breaks it down into 2 paragraphs. And he has this sort of commentary for what the blessing piece means and what the protection piece means. So what does he make of this doubling, and why is it sort of necessary in the blessing? Harold?
You know, people say be careful what you wish for, because sometimes you'll get it. And sometimes we think we're wishing for that what he's saying is that sometimes the blessings that you get come with a certain element need protection, or may come with something that you don't expect, that you need to be protected against.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's say I'm studying to be a rabbi, like, you know, Dave, I bless you in your Torah studies that you learn a lot, but don't get cocky. Or like, yeah. Cool. Harold, did I represent what you said?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna check the chat real quick. Mitchell says it's like wearing a belt and suspenders. It's like double protection from your pants falling down. Covering your tuchus. Other interpretations on this, Sarah?
I actually have a very mystical connection to God, but humans are powerful too. I believe in free will. So if we have the power to make God bless, God can also curse if God can bless. So maybe the repeat is protection from a curse. If God is powerful enough to bless, God is powerful enough to curse, and we don't want to see the curse.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, I want to just look at one more little bit. Is the Rashi? We're just going to do that one. Rashi says that this, instead of saying lamor, it says amor, and it says they use the verb amor so that the priests don't bless them in a hurried way, but they bless them devoutly and with a whole heart. So don't rush. And I'm curious, sort of like, what does this, telling Rashi saying, God said in this specific way, you should say the blessing, to tell them that they should, not rush. And sort of in your own prayer life, what might this allow, or like what might this be communicating to the priests who are giving the blessing? Stacy?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, because you said the host is not allowing, so that's why. I'm a little confused by this question. I'm not sure if this means, like, if somebody's giving you a blessing, or the priest is giving a blessing so that one can take it in. Is that what you refer? Is that what this is?
Yeah, I guess I wondered, like, is God asking the priest to like model prayer for people, or is God asking the priest to like bestow blessing upon people, like on God's behalf? It's like maybe God's just asking the priest to do this so people can kind of see what prayer looks like. They're sort of like prayer role models for people. I don't know. Ari?
Yeah, I think that maybe it's intended to be a model of prayer. And I'm thinking about the second part of your question. What does slowness in prayer or blessing allow? And it, like, my answer is kind of why I choose, when in my own sort of prayer practice, I often choose to chant instead of just like read, because it intentionally slows me down. And so I have to focus on the words that I'm saying. More than if I were to just read through it in the English or even the Hebrew. And that slowness almost brings like an intentionality to prayer that I think isn't there if you just do it quickly. So I think that maybe this blessing is a model of taking it slowly when you engage in your prayer life.
Thanks, Ari. Yeah, totally. I hope that your chanting allows you to keep praying with a whole heart. I saw Saul and then Judith Frank and then Neil.
So I'm agreeing with Ari. I always wondered with what kavanah, with what kind of intention is a person praying if they get through a whole morning service in 12 minutes? And I always remember when I was once had the honor to lead a service at an Orthodox congregation, and they warned me to watch the rabbi. And when we got to the Shema, the rabbi stood in a corner in the bookcase and said every word out loud with such dedication until emet. And it made me think, right, if you just rush through it, with what kavanah, with what thought process are you just praying, or are you just mumbling the words to get out to go to work?
Yeah. Wow, that's a beautiful story. Thank you, Saul. Judith?
Yeah, I was thinking something similar. I always think that sometimes I know I have attention deficit disorder, and I sometimes think the repetition of the prayers so that we at least say one time with full heart that we get it, because some people know this, everything by heart. And if you go through it too quickly, you're not really enunciating, you're not really thinking about the prayer, what it means. So every word should be done meaningfully.
Yeah.
And especially the high holidays where you have things repeated 3 times. Right?
Yeah. A lot of repetition with Amidah and high holidays.
Right.
We have time for 2 more comments. I see Neil and then Bill Rosenblum. And then we'll wrap up.
I was just thinking that, for the priests, this could get really rote. And you would just want to kind of rush through it, and it diminishes the experience, I think, for the person receiving the prayer. At the same time that I think it models for us, but I really wonder if it was really an instruction to the priest. Make it count each time.
Yeah. So like it's for the priest's own prayer life and their own sort of professional, how they're representing prayer to others. Thanks, Neil. And then Bill. Bill, can you unmute?
Unmute. To follow up on what Saul said, I remember one morning during the week, I think I had a yard site, and I went to the minyan at the Young Israel down the block where I used to live. And they asked me to be the Baal Tefillah for the morning. I was admonished for not going fast enough. They wanted out the second they got to that minyan. They wanted out. They wanted me to fly through everything. I don't remember if I did. It's a long, long time ago. But Saul, you're absolutely right. You were in a Hasidic setting where the rabbi had more input, but I don't know. I've had experiences where they got to the minyan, they wanted out the second they walked in the door, and I found that very disrespectful.
Yeah. It's painful when you're grieving and you're wanting to remember someone that people are asking you to rush. That's hard. Thanks for sharing that with us, Bill. Blessing is something that we do a lot in Judaism, and I just want to kind of let us see the origins of it for a little bit, but something that I think is curious about the placement of this blessing in Parshat Naso is that the verb naso, also which is represented in Yisa Adonai Panav Elecha, is like to lift up. And I think that at its best, like lifting up, maybe the positioning of this blessing in the portion is, and even the positioning of blessing in our lives is meant to actually lift each other up when we bless each other with our presence and our words and our actions. And so I hope that our blessing together in our prayer service and in how we show up for each other can lift each other up. So thanks for diving into these texts with me. And it's really great to be part of a community of learners.